Morning, everybody. Sorry. Holding on the third reading of the portion of Pekudei, holding on chapter 39, verse number 22. Yasas Me'il, and then he made the Me'il, the robe. Maise Oidig, it was a work of a weaver. Lil Tcheles, it was totally blue wool. Upia HaMe'il, and the mouth, the opening of the meal. The seicha, it turned inwards, kifi tachra, like the opening of a coat of armor, safa lapiv. So so that it was a strengthening of the around the rim of the opening of the meal, which should not lay kareya, since it's around his neck, constantly in movement, so it would not tear. Then he made upon the bottom of the hem robe pomegranates, a blue, purple, and crimson wool, a garment lashani, majda that was twisted all together. Then he made bells of pure gold. He placed the bells in the midst of the pomegranates. Al shule amil, which was in the bottom of this robe. Saviv b'seichel with the midst of the pomegranates, a pomegranate and a pomegranate, a bell and a pomegranate, a bell and a pomegranate, al shule and me'il on the bottom of the robe, saviv that surrounded the robe, the shadis that he would serve, kashativ Hashem esmeish, like God commanded Moshe. Yasas that containers, and then he made the linen tunics. Sheish was made out of a linen. Maisa Eidig was a work of a weaver. La'ad and Levana for Aaron and his children. Then he made the cap. Sheish, he made it out of linen. His Pare Hamikbois and the glorious high hats of linen. Sheish. And he also made the linen pants. Sheish Mazda was fine linen. She says, Pare Hamikbois, the glorious high hats. The glory of the high hats, meaning the glorious high hats. Then he made a sash, a gaitel. Sheish, he made it out of linen. Moshe that was twined. Tcheles bagam mixed with blue and purple and crimson wool. Maise reikim, this was embroidered work. Kashatziv Hashem Moshe, which God commanded Moshe. Vayas esatzitz, and then he made the tzitz. He made the show plate. Neze kodesh, which was holy crown. Zav Torah was pure gold. Vayiftav alav michtav petuche chesam, and he put upon it the inscription, engraving a seal which said kodesh Lashem, holy to God. Vayitnu alav apsil, and he placed upon it upon a cord of blue wool. Lasis alamatznefes, to place over the cap. Melamaila above it. Hashem es Moshe. She explains to me, like he explained before, how these strings went from the tzitz over his hat. And by means of a thread, he would place them over the cap like a sort of a crown. It's impossible to say that the show plate was over the cap, because the Shitrat Kotim in the Gemara, we learned that the Kohen Gadol's hair was between the show place and the cap, where he placed the tefillin. So there was the show plate was placed on the Kohen Gadol's forehead. Hence, the cap was above, and the show plate was below. So, what is the meaning over the cap, above it? Additionally, I found a problem. I find problem in this matter, namely, the text states, and he shall place upon it a cord of blue wool. And the section dealing with the command, it says, you shall place it upon a cord of blue wool. Therefore, I say as follows: the cord of blue wool was composed of threads with which to tie with the show place to the cap, since the show place extended from the ear to ear. Thus, how should the Kohen Gadol tie it into his forehead? Therefore, the blue wool was fastened to the show plate, at both ends. They had a string at both ends of this show plate, and in the center. So they had a string on two sides and one in the middle and on the top. And in which you would tie it, the show place, and hang it upon the cap. So he took those two strings from the middle and he went over his head, over his cap, and came to the back. And the two strings on the side came to the back. And that's where the two threads were at each end, and above the shoulder blades and below it, towards its forehead. Similarly, at the center, for it's easy to tie it in this way. And it was not customary to tie it fewer than two threads. Therefore, it says, upon the cord of blue wool, and upon a cord of blue wool. And he would tie the thread to the two ends, one from above and one from below the show plate. All of them together behind it, opposite his nape. And he would place the show plate upon the cap. Do not be astonished that it does not say blue wool upon the cap, since there were many threads, 3 threads, because we find regarding the cheshen, the ephod, that they all fastened that the cheshen by its rings to the rings of the ephod with blue cords. There we are forced to explain that there were no fewer than 2 threads, even though the pasuk it says cord in the singular, because 2 rings of the cheshen were on the 2 ends of the cheshen, and the 2 rings of the ephod were on the 2 shoulder straps of the ephod opposite them. And according to the usual way of tying rings together, there are 4 threads, one for every ring. In any case, fewer than 2 threads is impossible. So that's why you saw 2 threads, because it went through a loop. It was a hole on top of the cheshen plate, which the string went through, and you had 2 automatically from both sides. So you had 2 on top, 2 on the side. That's how they connected. Mishkan, and they finished the work of the Mishkan. And the work of the tent of meeting. Yasu b'nei Yisrael, and the Jewish people did. Whatever the Eibishter commanded Moshe, that's what they did. Now she says it's a malacha, the work according to all, whatever the Eibishter. And that completes the Chumash for today. We now go to the Tanya of the day. So we're still in chapter 34 in Tanya. So the Alter Rebbe said, as we ended off yesterday in the Tanya, that a Jew, when it says in the Torah, "V'gisa b'yom v'layla," you should learn Torah by day and by night. That means a Yid should take an opportunity to learn every morning and every afternoon. And when he does that, since the destruction of the temple, that's where we make, in that time, in that space, at that moment, when I'm sitting and learning Torah right now, I create a space for HaKadosh Baruch Hu in this world. Just like the Jewish people made the Mishkan, and ultimately they built the Beis HaMikdash in Yerushalayim, which was the revelation of God in this world. Even though God fills the world, God is all over the world, but revelation of God was in the Beis HaMikdash, was in the Mishkan. Therefore, how do we do it today? We do it simply by sitting and learning Torah every day, and making the time and space in our day, in this world, for God to come down in the learning of Torah. Because when we learn, we are learning God's wisdom and we are learning God's will. Im Yachiv Hashem le'od. The Alter Rebbe says it's not important time. You can do 10 minutes a day. But if God grants him a great abundance of time for study, Gabish gives him more time. He has now time. He's retired. Then he whose hands are pure will increase his effort. Yosef Eimitz. Meaning he should resolve that as more time becomes available to him, he will devote to Torah study more. That's it. Moreover, Machshava Teva, God reckons a good intention, that it's like an actual deed. Therefore, even while his time for studying Torah is limited to a small part of the day and night, he is regarded as if he studied the entire day. since he would have devoted all this time to study Torah had it been available. By the virtue of his good intention, he thus is, in a sense, an abode of godliness, not only during the time he actually spent the Torah study, but throughout the day. So here the Alter Rebbe says even more, that a person not only should take the time that he has, but he should have in mind that if the Eibishter gives him more time, he'll give him more time. And if God gave him that he could learn Torah all day, he would learn Torah all day. Therefore, even during the remainder of the day, when he's engaged in business, he will be in abode for God, in a sinas tzedakah, for the money that he gives to charity, what he does from his labor. Charity is one of the God's attributes, which we are enjoined to emulate. As our sages say, Mahu Rachum, thus like he is compassionate, so should we be compassionate. As it's brought down in Zohar, Chesed Dari Yamina, kindness is the right arm of God, so to speak. And therefore, human kindness constitutes the abode of divine attribute of kindness. And therefore, you give with your right hand, unless you're a lefty. You give with your right hand. Even though he's only distributing the charity, only 1/5 of his earning, the maximum requirement for charity is 1/5. How then is abode of godliness while he's engaged in earning other 4/5? Therefore, a Jew has to look at the 5th elevates the 1/5 that I give to charity. Maila Kolabayrik elevates the other 4/5. Not only you elevate the 5th, the 5th alone it becomes holy because it becomes a kedusha, because I'm giving it over to tzedakah, I'm doing it with a mitzvah, but it actually elevates the 4/5, so that they too become an abode of God. As we know the statement of our sages, the mitzvah of charity is like equivalent to offering of all the sacrifices. And when it came to the sacrifice, so you call chai oila. Why did you bring an oila every morning? You brought an animal. Why? Because the truth is, in Kabbalah it says that when they brought the animals, not that only that animal went up to kedusha. That animal represents all animals, and that's why in the Beis Hamikdash not only they brought animals, but every korban had a mincha, had a concept of a meal offering. Not only that mincha went up, that meal offering went up. All vegetation went up. Everything went up. It was not represented by one animal. And all vegetation, all animals, all vegetation went up with the meal offering, which existed merely of 1/10. So we took 1/10 of a measure of fine meal, fine flour, 1/10. What is that? It's not a lot. Comparison to all the flour in the world? No. But that 1/10 that went up as a mincha, that 1/10 elevated all minchas, all flour in the world. Bala Bashem, it was mixed with oil. And so too, wine that was brought up, everything that was brought to the Beis Hamikdash, whether it was animal, vegetation, it represented everything. Similarly, all one's earnings are elevated. When we give tzedakah, you're not just elevating, you think, oh, I'm only elevating one part. No, Api Kabbalah, when you give 5th to tzedakah, or 10th, or whatever you give to tzedakah, you elevate all your money. And apart from this, and also when a person davens, when a person prays, and when a person learns, what happens? I not only elevate the time I don't only elevate the space, I elevate everything that I've eaten. All because I daven with all my heart. I daven with all my strength. I learn with all my strength. That's why Torah needs to be learned by Yegiya, with strength, with the devotion, with supposed to make you tired, because you should learn Torah with all your power, with all your might, with everything you have. You should learn Torah. So that's what happens. Everything is elevated. So generally enjoyed his bodily health from the other 4/5 of his earning is elevated towards God. So that's what happens. Thus, even at the time spent on earning those profits, which he does not distribute in charity, also becomes an abode for godliness through Torah study and prayer. Because when I learn Torah, I have self-understood that if the Eibishter gives me parnasa, and the Eibishter gives me health, and God gives me food, and God gives me all this, and a house, and the nice, good things in the world. So why does he give it to me? I should be able to take this time. I should be able to have this time. And Baruch Hashem, the more time, the more parnasa, and the more health, and the more sustenance, and the more tranquility I have in life, the more capability and the more time. And not only the more time, but the more capability to focus on that time. So therefore, ultimately, everything that I have in this world, if I focus on that time, everything is elevated. Everything becomes in my whole life, in my whole possessions, all become part of this focus of Kedusha. And everything is elevated in the world. So therefore, I should realize it's not just the moment, the time of learning. It's not just the davening where I focus on and I give the time. It's actually the rest of the 24 hours. The rest of the 24 hours is elevated through that 10 minutes or that 20 minutes in the morning. And that davening and that tzedakah is all ultimately brought down, elevated and brought Kedusha to my whole day, to my entire day. And therefore, again, that's why it's important that we get up in the morning, we daven first, and we learn Torah first, and we give tzedakah first. We do all these things, and we make brachas, etc., etc. So that not only that we elevate that time, it's going to Mirch Hashem, going to elevate the entire day. And the proof is going to be that Mirch Hashem, at the end of the day, I'm going to end it off also with Kedusha. I'm going to daven, I'm going to learn. Yisa by Yoimam Valayla, you need to learn by day and by night. So ultimately, I'm going to sandwich in the day, and sandwich in the work day, whatever the mundaneness of the rest of the time. I'm going to sandwich in between the learning and the davening in the morning, and the learning and the davening in the evening. And that completes the Tanya, the Chumash of today. Today is the second day of the month, which is chapter 10 through chapter 17. Chapter 10 through chapter 17. If you do those chapters, you do the chitas of the day. I wish you all a wonderful, beautiful day, a happy and healthy, gorgeous day. Have a wonderful day.